Hello, hello! Tonight is the winter solstice, longest night of the year, and I'm finally going to get this video up. So, what this video is the Procreate Progress video for my entry for the Narrative Art Award for the SCBWI competition this last year, a couple months ago. So what happened is it wasn't exactly my plan to do this, but what happened was I ended up doing all the work for this competition from, brainstorming to thumbnails to all the way up through the final images in the same Procreate document. And so it has the video for the entire process all in one piece, which I thought was pretty cool. And I actually meant to share this before now, but life got busy and I didn't. So you can see that at this point I was just working through some thumbnails and I kind of found an idea I liked, and I'm trying out getting a little more details and value in. You can see that my first idea I moved on from pretty early on, that it was a contemporary, just a school setting, and I was like, I'm not too excited about this. And so I thought and looked through at the prompt again, which was a groundbreaking journey, kind of inspired by the anniversary of the moon landing. And so I could do a more interesting groundbreaking journey. So I wanted this kind of second idea, which I liked better and spent a lot more time on, was that it would be a girl who built a flying machine. And you can see just here, it wasn't working the way I wanted. I was having a hard time getting a composition that was working the way I wanted with a flying machine. So I kept the idea of a girl building something to go somewhere, but decided to have her building a diving suit. And so doing lots of sketches and ideas of how I can make that work. And then on this round, trying harder to have kind of a different emotion be emphasized in each of the three pieces of the story. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, I guess I should explain this. So the Narrative Art Award is for the SCBWI competition. So SCBWI stands for Society of Children's Books Writers and Illustrators. So each year they do this Narrative Art Award where it's to do 3 images, either for picture books or middle grade, that tell a story, either with or without words, and that they need to be linked together, that they show the progression of the story, and that there's a clear emotional arc as to the story. And so and then, like I said, this year the prompt was a groundbreaking journey. So I decided, because I've been wanting to get some black and white middle grade work into my portfolio, and I just haven't, partially just because I love colors and it's fun to add them. I decided that I'd challenge myself, one, to do a middle grade entry, to do it all in black and white, and 2, to do it in Procreate on my iPad. That I normally work on a computer in Adobe Illustrator with vectors, and that's kind of my comfort zone. But this year I was lucky enough to be able to get an iPad and start learning to use that. And I wanted a reason to use Procreate and really get more comfortable in it. And so my challenge for myself was to make my entry for this competition entirely in Procreate. And so I'm actually really glad that I did that. I'm a lot more comfortable creating work in Procreate now because I did that. You can see, though, that I'm still kind of sticking with my comfort zone, since I'm used to working with vectors in Adobe Illustrator. I'm used to really hard edges and clean lines, and so and instead of fighting that, I just kind of embraced it. And what I am doing here is using the just most clean hard-edged brush in order to do that. And I'm actually using a similar process that I might use in Illustrator. And just to make it clear, like I said, I'm learning to use Procreate to do this this project, and so this isn't necessarily, well, isn't necessarily, it definitely isn't like a very refined process, or I don't necessarily know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of figuring it out, and there's probably, you know, better ways to do things. And as I get more used to the program, I probably will have, well, I hope that I will have a more like refined process that I follow. Like I said, I ended up, not according to plan, but what ended up happening is I did the entire project in one file. It wasn't a huge file. I did it at 1114, so I can print it at a decent size, but not huge. But because of the limitations of iPads and Procreate, that meant that I had a limited number of layers, which isn't entirely a bad thing, because kind of my painting background, what I'm used to with painting is you know, traditional, so just doing everything on a canvas and having everything flat. So you can see here that each of these pieces consists of 2 layers, at least to start. I have my base layer and then kind of a transparent multiply shadow layer on top. And eventually, having the 2 separate layers and the shadow layer would just got obnoxious to me. I just flattened them, and that was just, that was the easiest for me, was to just have it all in one layer. And I know there's cool things that you can do with layers, and maybe I'll learn more about that as I get more comfortable in the program and more comfortable with using rasters and all of that. But yeah, so these ended up all being flattened to just being a single layer. And I do kind of like how they turned out. I do feel that, as is kind of normal when you're learning a new medium or program, and there's some stiffness. They're a little bit, I don't know, to me, I feel like it looks like, you know, I overworked some areas just because I didn't have my process down. I was learning the program, and there's some things that were a little stiff about it. That being said, though, I am really proud of these pieces, that I learned a lot doing them, and I like how they turned out, despite the fact that I was still kind of figuring out Procreate during the process. And I'm glad that I took the time to, as you see, I've evolved the idea significantly, from, in particular from the first idea I had. But even when I had the second idea with the flying machine that I liked better, and obviously since I wasn't, it wasn't connected to a specific story, and I chose to change it up again and find an idea that I liked better. And I'm glad that I did. That I think that this was, you know, the best idea, and it definitely wasn't the first one that I came up with. And so I think it's really interesting for me, actually, to look back and see this process. That, as I said, this is from the very beginning. You saw all the ugly sketches, and then now that I've committed to the 3 pieces that I wanted, adding in all the details and still figuring out how things are going to work. And as I said, that you can see that at this point I still have a shadow layer that I'm turning on and off, that eventually I just flatten. And you'll see here in a minute that I wasn't liking how the silhouette of the diver was working, and so I tried changing up the seaweed here pretty soon. So it probably was something that I should have worked on more in the thumbnailing stage, is getting those values to work. A little bit of a toddler contribution there, which it wouldn't be a video for me if there wasn't a little bit of a help from a toddler. But yeah, doing lots of layers and textures. And this is again, like I said, I'm borrowing a lot from the process that I use in Adobe Illustrator with vectors, of using, you know, layers of colors on top of each other and erasing out in order to get the textures I want. I think a lot of people just kind of naturally, most people tend to like to use a more additive process of putting down the color they want, And for whatever reason, it feels more natural to me to subtract, if that makes sense, that I will put down a large amount of the color that I want, and I intentionally put too much of it, and then I'll erase away from it and make it lighter. And which is, and here I finally start working on trying to get that silhouette, changing up the seaweed there. I think that an interesting thing to note here is that it took me a while to kind of figure that out about kind of myself and how I think and how I like to work. That, when I was in school, I experimented with a lot of different mediums and processes and styles, and none of them were very great. I, did a lot of bad student work, which, is normal and good. And that I tried a lot of different things. And one of the projects that I did in school was a kind of linocut inspired style. I was doing it digitally, but I did that kind of subtractive approach, and I really liked it. And you can see here, for a minute I was like, maybe I don't need seaweed. Maybe I should just put the water behind. Didn't like that. So coming back to the seaweed, drawing it all the way over again because I liked the color, but not the details. So I have no idea actually how long I worked on these images total. I doubled the speed of this video, so the video in Procreate was half an hour long, but I've doubled it so that this is only about 15 minutes, maybe a little longer. Anyway, so like I said, I did a linocut inspired project in college and I liked it, and then I moved on. I tried different things. It wasn't until a year or two later that I kind of remembered that project that I was like, I really liked how that one came out. I'm gonna try that again, see if I can play a little more with that process. And it originally was just another experiment that trying new things, different projects, different processes, different looks. And so I did another project in that kind of linocut style. I was like, I really like this. Like, I love doing this. And so the next time I had an image that I wanted to do, I used that same kind of a reductive process rather than adding down the pigment. Taking it away. Well, not pigment, it was on a screen, but you know what I mean. The cutting away of where you don't want the color to appear, rather than the just putting down of color where you want it to be. And I liked it so much when I tried that project that next time I did an image, I was like, I'm going to try that again. And here we are a few years later, and I haven't stopped. I think that's kind of a example, I guess, of the best way to find or develop a style is just try a lot of things and don't feel like, okay, this is going to be my style and this is how I'm going to always do it and everything's going to look like this. When I originally started experimenting with the erasing away kind of approach, it was just like, well, we're just going to try that. And I was like, that felt really good. Let's keep doing it. And so even here in Procreate, even though I'm using an entirely different program, I still am doing that kind of linocut look. Anyway, so if you can't tell, I'm trying to think of more interesting things to say about this project, because right now I'm just working through the details and trying to get the whole image to work in the value pattern, adding in the coral and the fun little things, but nothing that's too light or dark that's going to throw off the value pattern that I have established here. But and obviously this final image, if you can't tell, is the one that I spent the most time on. I wanted it to be like a real climax and have a lot of fun things to like reward a close viewing if someone took the time to look closely at it. And I really like how this one came out, and I think it's a satisfying kind of climax to my little mini story here. So, yeah, I don't know what else to talk about, guys. Oh, more toddler contributions. You can tell which one of my kids is drawing. Well, I can tell which one of my kids is drawing it just by the way that they do it. If my son is drawing, he just kind of does random marks all over, but those more intentional, all one color that's filling the screen, that's the way my daughter likes to draw. I think it's interesting, being a mom of two, seeing how differently two kids like approach and things and develop, and how they have a tendency to do things in a certain way. And then, like I said, for me, realizing that I have a tendency to, like to do reduction rather than additive process, things like that. That when you learn things about yourself, to lean into them and to not fight the things that you want to do and the way you want to draw. Anyway, I hope that was interesting. I rambled a lot. Maybe some of it was interesting. Maybe it was really boring. But that was my process and progress in the Narrative Art Award. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening.